revenue.
And have we got any timelines on that, Rose?
So, well, it will end up in the statement of intent, the level of information that you get, and in the quarterly reporting. But we're just working through at the moment with the finance division just how low do you go, and what really meets people's needs. So, in the granularity.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Casey.
Rose, I'm interested in the fact that the governance framework review is now picking up the one about delegations from CCOs, which means it's freed up a bit of your time and money, because that's a responsibility you're given elsewhere. Is that money going with it? As you say, you're at the limits of your resourcing with the current programme, but that current programme is going to be taking a little bit out.
I'm seconding Rose into that project for that purposes of that
no, that's
element.
good to hear. No, that's my worry was that you were given something to the framework review and they weren't competent enough to be able to do it.
No,
so you're going with it?
Absolutely not. So we had anticipated, and that program leader and I had spoken about this, and we agree that that is the best place for that work to take place. And when we were working out the resourcing, that was part of the deal, if you like.
Right, my next question, and this is really important, is that there's a different time frame for the governance review framework than for the 18 months before anything happens here. And so can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think the local boards need some certainty within, I wouldn't say even the year, we're talking about 6 months, tops.
Councillor, there's not a sort of a perfectly neat alignment here. We are looking to have recommendations around the governance framework review in August this year. So some of the work work that Rose is talking about is going to take longer than that to progress. First point, but there is also going to be an implementation phase around the governance framework recommendations, I predict, and some of that will need to tie into the long-term plan cycle. For example, financial budgetary matters would make sense to think about in that cycle. So while we might have clarity about where we want to go, we won't have done the implementation of changes. That's the reality of it. And I might add that there are some financial policy matters that may take even longer because the policy aspect will need to be part of the consultation for the LTP. So we could be longer again. I don't mean to scare you, but that's the reality of the lead times for some of the more significant changes that we might tie in. So it might seem like they're out of whack, but probably they're not that out of whack.
Well, I've got an expectation as a member of the governance framework review team that August we're going to have revolution.
I am your loyal servant.
right up to the barricades. Wayne Walker.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate a lot of the principles that are here. It would be useful as an exercise to actually do some testing. I could probably think of a number of specific examples that go to transparency, need for granularity, instances where you haven't got syncing amongst the CCOs and the council, and that sort of process would really test this so that we actually come up with something that is fit for purpose. So I just toss that in. I don't know whether you'd consider doing that sort of exercise. A number of councillors might be happy to feed into it, and local board people as well.
Councillors, please feel free to feed in at any time during the review. You've got my email address, any matters that you want us to look at. But we have got quite a granular level of detail underneath what we've put in here, so of things that we know need addressing.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rose.
We now have an opportunity for statements if you need, but I think it's reasonably straightforward. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to bring up something that I didn't bring up in our actual committee, and that is, I'm a huge fan of this. I think that Auckland has asked for more, accountability and transparency, especially of the CCOs. And what we've done here is we're doing more for less. So we've added 5 new measures, which we hadn't used before. But what I didn't say in the committee meeting, but we're actually strengthening the 12 that we did. I mean, one of the things that is the accountability policy, which hasn't been touched for a number of years. So I don't think you should be afraid to say, actually, it's not just 5 new, it's actually doing more with the 12 that we already have done as well. And as for the cost, look, we all want to do more for less, and I think that's really important. And I think the benchmark will be May, when we get the first sort of start. Is this working with the strengthening of all the tools that we currently have within budget, trying to do more for less, or do we actually have to invest a little bit more? So I think the option 2 is the obvious way, but I just didn't want to. I wanted to strengthen the fact that we were strengthening the 12 and not just creating 5 new.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think what we're doing here is taking it a lot further than where it was, but we're having regard to the fact that if we add in another XYZ recommendations, what we're doing is diluting the ability of our staff to focus on the ones that are the most important. It doesn't exclude us further down the track from working out further ways in which we might like to ensure accountability, transparency, etc. But we're biting off what we think we can chew at this moment, and it's actually quite a lot, and I'm conscious of the fact of the pressure that we're putting on our staffers, but they are keen to do it, and I think that this will take us significantly forward. Okay, any other comments? Councillor Casey?
If you just need some direction on what to do first and what order to do them, there's a couple there that stand out for me. One is that CCOs must act consistently with. I mean, why aren't they? That shouldn't even, you said, Rose, something like, we need to tell them what we want them to do. I thought it was self-evident that if we have policies, must means that. So I would say that was number 1, and that was a surprise to me that they're not. Have you got an example just to hand? I can give you one, but I'd like to hear yours.
Just if I may answer, I think it's one thing for us to develop a policy and strategy and work with the CCO on it. It's quite a different matter to say to the board, this is, these are the 5, these are the 10, these are whatever, that we really think that you play a huge part in delivering for us, and we want you to act consistently with. That's a different thing than what's currently going on. Is we're working with CCOs in developing them. We have an understanding between us, but it's quite a different thing for you as a governing body to communicate that as an expectation to the board.
Right, so that's a must. That would be number 1 for me. Number 2, or equal first, would be the one that is now taking 7 years to take another 18 months, is increasing the recognition of ratepayer funding for CCO activity. I don't see how that's going to take 18 months, so that should be right up there. I mean, how often do we have to communicate it? We're doing it at every level, and still we're 18 months away from getting it? Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all, Councillor, but many of these mechanisms contribute in either in large part or in small part to that. It's when we add all of those things together that I think you'll get a better outcome. One of those things, of course, that we brought before you was the brand navigation group identity guidelines.
Yeah.
That was seeking your direction to actually make those a policy that you endorse so that we could send the board a letter on those.
And I'll remind councillors that we didn't send a strong message to officials in that meeting. We'll have to come back to that. Councillor Sayers?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, well, I think we're doing moving a lot further forward than we have been in the past, and I think we just really do have to pull every lever that we've got at our disposal to get this greater transparency and accountability in our council-controlled organisations. It's disappointing that the CCOs haven't done it off their own volition, but here we are making the decisions to actually make them report to a level that we expect. And it's not just us as the governing body, Mr Mayor, it's Aucklanders are expecting it. So we just need to be strong in our leadership, keep moving forward, deliver what Aucklanders want to see from the CCOs in terms of accountability, and at the end of the day, they'll make the judgment how well we do that. So thank you for bringing the paper to the table.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I've got the recommendations in front of you. They've been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. For the contrary, no. Carried. The last item on the agenda is consideration of extraordinary business, and there has been no nomination of any extraordinary business. So with that, I'll declare the meeting closed and thank councillors for their participation and their staff for their input. Thank you very much.